Good morning. Glad to spend some time with you this morning. I hope you're having a great July. I know it's hot outside, but I hope you're getting some time to get out, be with friends, be with family, stay safe. I hope you're using this as an opportunity to kind of maybe before the fall kicks off, dream about the last 6 months, think about the last 6 months, and then maybe look forward and dream for the future. And I know that can be kind of hard because we're living in what feels like a science fiction novel right now with how awkward and odd and foreign everything feels. But I hope to be helpful for you today, just in how we think as Christians. So we're going to be in Philippians 4. We're kind of moving our way through the end of the book, but Philippians 4 is going to be very helpful. And I think there's a passage in there that's going to show us Christ very clearly and where we can fix our attention. But while you're turning there in whatever device or Bible you're using, you know, some of you know this about my wife if you're friends with her, but she loves puzzles of all things. She loves puzzles. They kind of decompress her quickly. She's very quiet whenever she does them. She has some time to think, but not think hard. And when we go on vacations, wherever we go, whether we're at a rental or an Airbnb or a beach house or wherever we land, we have to make sure that there is a table that is set aside for nothing but puzzles, because that's where she's going to spend the most of her time. Me, not so much. I hate puzzles. I think I had a few bad experiences with puzzles growing up. I would get right down to the last maybe dozen pieces, and one of my moron roommates would have stolen 12 of them, or they were lost. And I don't know if it's my Enneagram, but I just can't walk by a puzzle that's almost done and be satisfied. It's debilitating. I just couldn't deal with it. So for me, not so much. Not about puzzles. But I do think the metaphor works because it's easy for a lot of us to feel like an incomplete puzzle, right? Mostly there, but got a lot of missing pieces still. So feels very disconnected, a lack of peace, a lack of stillness, fragmented, disorganized. Any of these words would work. And I think today's going to be helpful for us, for those of us who feel disorganized, discombobulated mentally, kind of detached, fragmented. Again, some of the same words. Where on a good day, you feel like you don't have a second to think. And when you do think, you're not fixing your mind on the right things. But on a worse day, you're very, very disconnected from who you are, disconnected from the people around you, disconnected from God Himself. I think today's going to be helpful if you lack peace in your life right now, but are more of a puzzle with missing pieces. You know, as we get close to the end of Philippians, some of you might not know how we even choose a book of the Bible to go through. But we spend a lot of time, a lot of prayer discerning what we should go through as a church, how we could build around it as a church. Put a lot of time into it, and we're usually a book or two ahead. We're already dreaming for the rest of this year and already looking into what 2021 can look like for us as far as our preaching goes. We ask some pretty key questions. Where are we as a people? Where are we headed as a people? What do we need as a people, really? That being said, Philippians wasn't even on the docket for us. Just like your plans for 2020, summer of 2020 changed, we had to hit delete on ours as well as a leadership team at Legacy Church. We actually had Exodus, of all books, on the docket. And that's going to be a helpful book. It's a fantastic book for us to go through as a church. But Philippians felt like a better fit. So we totally called an audible, moved Exodus off to the side, really worked hard on getting Philippians before you because of Paul's key theme in the whole letter, what's being considered the letter of joy, is that you and me, we can have peace and joy in all circumstances. I think we need that. That's why last week we took some time to hear Paul speak on how we deal with an anxious heart, an anxious mind, and how we can pray with supplication and thanksgiving, and how God brings a peace to us that bends around our logic. It exceeds any kind of a peace we can create with our own minds and our own hands. Today, Paul is in the same train of thought. He's talking about peace, how we walk with a God of peace. Because I'll tell you what, a scattered mind, a fragmented puzzle of a mind that we carry with us, it really accelerates anxiety. When we don't have a minute just to think, and when we do have a moment to think, we can't keep a train of thought because we're so busy-minded. And when we do have moments that we can capture thoughts, we're fixing our minds, we're dreaming and pondering and meditating on the wrong things. There's going to be a lot of help for us, especially because we are in an up-tempo society, a very fragmented society, if you want to think of it that way. We live in an on-demand world where we can haphazardly scroll through multiple threads on multiple devices, with multiple apps, with multiple tabs open. We can connect to media in any direction at any time right now. Add to this fear that we have of not being in the know. That's why we have all of our notifications turned on our phones, right? When your phone dings and blurps and bleeps and it notifies you of something being posted, something being put out there for you to view, it feels like you're being rescued from irrelevance, being rescued from living a life of not knowing what is going on around you. And so we're always a people in the know, but never at peace, hyper-connected to what's going on in our universe here, but totally disconnected from who God is and who we are in the grand scheme of things. I think over time we lose our touch for quietude, stillness, not just thought, but deep thought, big consideration. We've lost a sense of touch for looking at the big picture, zooming out, and then seeing who we are in the context of the big picture. It takes time to think about those things. It takes some devotion, some commitment, some fight to think through those things. We've also lost a taste for just looking at the past, seeing how we got to where we are, looking forward and dreaming for what could be. We've lost this. And thinking deeply has been replaced by reacting and responding quickly. We've made an idol of sorts out of immediacy, wanting what we want now in a universe that we have around us that is incredibly small, right? Listen, I know it sounds like I'm my grandpa right now. I do not hate our on-demand world. I love it. It's been helpful. It's full of benefits. It's incredibly convenient. I have a phone just like you have a phone. I have apps just like you have apps. I have social media accounts just like you do. But one thing I've noticed over the years is I've become more fragmented, right? More out of breath between one thing and the next, with my mind slowly becoming focused on small moments of struggling to be in the know, of just taking in small packets of information from 10 different angles. You've probably felt the same thing. I mean, have you noticed that a lot of people are going on social media sabbaticals right now? I see it almost every day. Somebody's saying, hey, I'm out for about a month or 3 months. I think it's just an attempt to get some perspective. I like it. I like the sabbaticals because being in the know all the time, it shrinks our universe to be incredibly small. And when you are confined to a small, tiny universe, you start to think like a toddler. A toddler's universe is very small as well. I mean, gosh, when I was 17, my universe was about as big as my stupid car stereo and my skateboard and my friends and whatever job I was in at the time. Small universe. But whenever we're focused on what is new, viral, cutting edge, current, immediate, passing, temporary, what down the street, what is going on, we lose scope of what's going on around us. Can't dwell on things that are eternal of sorts. I mean, the news apps on your phone, they were designed knowing that you will not read past the second paragraph. We don't really read the news, do we? And think deeply upon it. What we do is we read the headlines. We bolt from headline to headline to headline. And if you do find something that is somewhat interesting, you'll probably read through the first 2, maybe 3 paragraphs. That's why the ads are set up where they're at. Even Twitter. When Twitter was developed, they heavily resourced those who engineered slot machines to maybe recreate the allure of pulling down on that lever and being excited, so that we always go back to that thread and always pull it down, scroll it down to see what is new. How can we be more in the know? I think far more than the Philippian church that Paul is speaking to, we are a emotionally fragmented people. We are distracted beyond any people who have ever lived ever on this planet. Far more than the Philippian church. We struggle carrying a thought from moment of time to another moment of time. We struggle carrying deep thoughts very long. This is something that author Neil Postman wrote about. He calls it the now this way of discourse. Now this. But when you're done with that, now this. That kind of has run its course. Now this. But constantly as a people saying, now this. We're not really trained to carry our thoughts from parcel of time to next parcel of time, or from day to day, or from hour to hour. We're trained to ponder quickly, meditate fast, get the information, push it away. New information, push it away over and over again. This is why it's so easy for you and me to look at a news app on our phone, right, while we're grooming our Spotify account, and then quickly jump off of that so we can scroll through a TikTok compilation while we're catching up on an episode of The Crown that we missed, so that we have enough time to maybe comment on our aunt's niece's birthday party, and then maybe check our email, check our bank account, check the weather, and we could do all of that in probably 9 minutes. We're very fragmented. We're very fragmented. I'm not mad at today. It's not today's fault, right? I'm definitely not hoping to go back in time to yesterday. I love the convenience just like you do, but it begs the question, how are we supposed to think as Christians with such a quick pace, with so much clutter? How are we supposed to think? And when we do think, what are we supposed to think? What do we fix our minds on? Because this way of thinking can't get perspective. Can't get perspective. Cannot audit our heart. Think deeply, painfully deep. Can't consider. Can't really ponder or meditate. Long thoughts are gone. And most of our thoughts can be fit in an Instagram story. Quick, in, out, next. Now what? This has a lot of ramifications for us, much deeper than what I think we really realize at the moment. But how you think matters, and what you think upon matters. So this passage is going to help us because our thoughts do drive our actions. Or as Paul says here in a different way, our pondering does drive our practice. So if you have a Bible, look at Philippians 4. We're going to jump into verse 6. And it's going to be repeating one verse that we read last week. Philippians 4, verse 6. This is the word of the Lord for us today. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And then he says, finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things, what you have learned and received and heard and seen in me. Practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Okay, I want to focus on what we think more than what we're practicing. I mean, there's a lot in that passage, but I want to focus on the first part of what Paul is saying. Now, and it's important for you to know that when we read about peace in the New Testament, it's borrowing its meaning from the Old Testament, where its origin is. If you're reading through the Old Testament, you'll see the word peace often, and many times the root word is shalom. You hear people use that word today, shalom. It doesn't mean peace quite like what we mean in current contemporary language. Peace then, and so therefore in the New Testament, means completeness, to be whole. Not just an absence of war, but to be a puzzle with all of the pieces and not just some of them. And there's an inner wholeness in a fulfilled person. It's a satisfied person that is complete. A person that is not disintegrated, but fully integrated. And when I say complete and whole, I mean in every direction. Complete and whole within themselves, where they feel tranquil. a completeness and a whole with how they see their relationship with God, where there's tranquility between how they connect with their King, and then even with each other. But does this word peace describe you? Does it describe you? How does your puzzle look today? Missing some pieces? I think we need this peace for many reasons, one of them to be healthy missionaries. I know that sounds odd, but if we are going to minister to those around us in the shape of Jesus, it means that we walk with the God of peace, feeling this shalom, this wholeness, this completeness. I mean, Christ was the most integrated, fulfilled, satisfied, content, not fragmented person who's ever lived. He was never cluttered, never anxiously in doubt. He was never unsatisfied, never discontent. And we are sent to minister as he was sent to minister. Now listen, that means a lot of different things, that we are sent as he was sent. They exceed a sermon like this. But just to shotgun it, Jesus, he crossed a great gulf, a great barrier to go to a people that were not like him, a people who would not be ready to receive what he had to give, a people that didn't deserve what he had to give, a people that would take from him, a people that would be increased at his decrease. That's kind of the shape of how Jesus was sent, which is, funny enough, that's how we're sent, right? That's what he says in John 20, that we are sent to cross great gulfs, to go to a people that don't look like us, a people that don't deserve the gospel, just like we didn't deserve the gospel, a people that will probably take from us and not give to us, but a people that we can impoverish ourselves to make them abundant in this new spiritual life. So we are sent to the lost world as Christ is sent to us, but that's not the only way. We're sent with the peace of the Father, because that is how Christ ministered. He didn't walk as a fragmented person, but he was complete. The peace of God. This is what we see in John 20:21. Just a quick bullet. Jesus says, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, even so I am sending you." But friends, listen, if we're just discombobulated all the time and anxious, zero peace, can't get a thought, can't send a thought in a single direction, can't carry a deep thought from one moment to the next, then what are we extending to a nervous world? What is it that we're holding out? I mean, have you ever felt off-center and fake and disingenuous whenever you tell people about the peace of God because you're not feeling it yourself? I mean, theologically, you know it's accurate to say that God is a God of peace. And theologically, biblically, you believe that God is a God of peace. So you have no problem being accurate and telling people. But you're not telling them because of your experience. You're telling them because of your theology. You're telling them because it's theoretical. Paul isn't giving us pointers here. He's not giving us advice. He's discipling us. He's teaching and leading us to be what? More complete, satisfied, to feel peace. Not for the sake of just having peaceful feelings, but also to be hopeful for a broken world around us. It has absolutely no shalom, no peace. They're very fragmented, very discombobulated. It's a demanding text. It's an imperative. Think of these things. Practice these things. Very oddly enough, how you experience Jesus and enjoy Jesus, it's bigger than you. We think that's all about us. But it's bigger than you that you experience Jesus. Not theoretically, but you feel it. You're a part of it. It's an experience for you, that you enjoy him, that you develop your affections for him. That's bigger than us. It's way bigger than us. Legacy Church, we are only as strong as our individual members are fulfilled. As a church, it doesn't matter how cool everything is or if we have a giant facility. It doesn't matter if I'm a really good preacher or what. None of that even matters. We are only as strong as our individual people, our community, is satisfied. We're only as strong as our people are fascinated with Jesus. In fact, that's our key value, gospel fascination. Right? Now, we have three values. We are gospel-fascinated people, we are a communally authentic people, and we are a missionally active people. Gospel, community, mission. But the stump of the tree for us is the gospel, the story of God for mankind through the person of Jesus, and that we are fascinated with that. Gospel fascination is the key value for everything that we have built from day one. And all it means is just to enjoy the reality of Jesus experientially. Not just that he saves us, but that he sustains us and that he satisfies us in everyday living. And that's what it means to develop this fascination. The idea that the gospel is not just a story that when we're finished reading, we just kind of put up on a shelf next to books with other stories. But it's a story that ignites our imagination and beats deeply into our hearts. We're not just waiting for Jesus to come back. We're excited to have Jesus now, to experience him every moment. He's not just a character in our Bible. He's the hero of our souls. He's our companion, our friend, our hero. I bump into people all the time in this city, so do you, where the presence of Jesus is it's a thought, it's a piece of theology, a chunk of theology, a creed. But it's not a living, breathing reality. And people know that Jesus is close, but they know it not through experience. They just know it theoretically. And maybe this is you. Theoretically, you know Jesus is with you, but you don't enjoy him. You don't. In fact, when I use words like fascinated, it's a stretch for you maybe. You might think, I don't know, I like the gospel. I maybe love the gospel, but fascinated? Come on. Enamored? Not so much. Not so much. But friends, without this vivid sense of a present, satisfying Jesus, we're going to fall into sin. We're going to sleepwalk. We're going to sleepwalk in the time that God has given us to walk on this planet and be sent as he is sent. Our time here is a vapor. It's gone like that. And we can possibly sleepwalk through the whole thing. If Jesus is a theological character only, you will never be satisfied. If he's a Bible character, you'll never be complete. You'll always be a puzzle with many missing pieces. And I think this is where the passage is finding many of us today. Unsatisfied, disintegrated, not whole, fragmented, anxious. We dwell on the wrong things. We meditate on the wrong things. We savor the wrong things. In that way, we're very much like the Philippians, who Paul is addressing right here. Sleepwalking. Letting our minds jump from shallow topic to shallow topic for a small amount of time, not really fixing our minds on things that are noble and pure and beautiful and excellent. Paul is speaking to us, but we have some good news. The gospel is perfect for sleepwalkers. The gospel is perfect for incomplete puzzles and those who have no peace, no shalom. The gospel is made, engineered for people who are incomplete. That's good news. We have a really cool passage that kind of connects all the dots. It's in John. We're going to be in John 20, so you can flip there if you want. I'm sure we'll splash it up on the screen. John 20. And this is the word of the Lord for us as well. In verse 19, very helpful for me. On the evening of that day, the first day of the week, the doors being locked where the disciples were for fear of the Jews, Jesus came and stood among them and said to them, "Peace be with you." And when he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. Then the disciples were glad when they saw the Lord. Jesus said to them again, "Peace be with you. As the Father has sent me, even so I am sending you." It's a rich passage. There's a lot there. But what I want you to see and what we read so far is that there's a link between the peace he gives us and the suffering his body took. There's a line that connects to both. He's showing them the wounds in his hand and in his side, and that wounding, that crucifixion, that crushing of him on the cross is what produces the peace for all of his brothers and sisters, for all of God's people. This peace be with you. Friends, that's a gospel declaration. It's not Christ saying, "Hey, I know you guys are freaked out about the Jews, but on my way here, I looked. They're like several blocks off. They're not going to hurt you. Everybody just take a minute, breathe deeply. You're going to be fine." It wasn't an immediate peace or a momentary situational peace. It is a cosmic forever peace. He's saying, "Peace, for you'll always be complete. Shalom, for you'll always You'll always be whole because of what I have done for you. Here are my hands, here is my side. This is what he's saying. Jesus, the God-man, our hero, is the only person who pondered the right things, thought about the right things, thought deeply enough about the right things, fixed his mind on things that were true and noble and just and beautiful and excellent. He's the only person that ever did that. He's the only one who walked this planet that always had his mind trained on the things that were pleasing to the Lord. He was fascinated with the Father, with the plan of the Father. It was the fulfillment of this list. That's basically what this passage is, right? Our passage today is kind of a list of things that we fix our minds on. That list describes him. It's him that's living in this list. He says, think about whatever is true. That's hard for us today, right? As we kind of filter through all the claims of truth today. We're just trying to figure out, is this true or is this true? Don't know. And truth is kind of morphed to be a situational truth or a personal truth. And so it's not always easy. And sometimes we do know the truth, but we like untruth a lot better because it suits us. Not so with Christ. He told the truth when it was most inconvenient for him. And why did he tell the truth? And why did he walk in truth? To save a nation of liars. Untrue people. It says, think about whatever is honorable. Struggle with that too, though, don't we? Right? Because we struggle with our thoughts being base and ignoble, dishonorable. It's like, listen, I'm a guy. I like a fart joke just as much as the next guy likes a fart joke. But when our lives are a constantly running fart joke and we're not ever fixing our mind on things that are honorable and noble, then we are not fixing our mind on the same thing that Christ did and one of the pillars that holds the gospel up. Because Christ suffered an ignoble, dishonorable death on a hill outside the city. So you need to know, when they escorted him out and crushed him on that hill on the cross, that hill was meant for criminals and outlaws. It was the most dishonorable death on the most dishonorable parcel of land. And why did he do it? For people like us, who are dishonorable people, ignoble people. Whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, these are things we struggle with. We struggle with pure thoughts. We struggle thinking about justice today, if you can't tell. We struggle fixing our minds on what is lovely. This is a comprehensive list of the gospel of Christ in Jesus, who is the hero of this gospel. And when we set our mind on these things, we are truly setting our mind on the very same attributes of Christ. When Paul says, think about whatever is true and honorable and just and pure and lovely and excellent and commendable, whenever we fix our minds on that, are we not fixing our minds on the person and in the work of Jesus, the goodness of God? And when we dwell on these things and where we see them around us today, the God of peace comes. The God of peace comes. But if you're a voyeur in what you watch online, if you're binging something that is just filled to the top with total trash, if you're a murderer in how you hate other people around you, if you're looking for revenge and you savor the opportunity, if you're a happy racist in your headspace, if you covet what your neighbor has, you're missing the peace of God. You're missing it. You're missing this peace of God that Paul is talking about. You're savoring, meditating, and pondering the wrong things. You're not experiencing or enjoying Christ. You're not whole. You're not complete. I think this is what a lot of us need right now, is a heavy audit on what we're thinking. Just what's up here. Because if you let your mind go to wherever it feels like going, and you don't put a fence on it, you don't put structure to it, you don't govern your thoughts, that's no different than a toddler lives. Toddlers go where they want, they say what they want, they do what they want, they sing what they want, they do whatever they want to do. They're toddlers, right? And some of us, no matter what we say, we have the mind of a toddler. We just let it run. Let it do whatever it wants to do. Friends, the gospel is the power of God for salvation, and it's also the power of God to reinvent our mental space, to help us think like the gospel, to help us be enamored and fascinated with the gospel and Christ of the gospel. Are you where you want to be right now? Do you enjoy the God of peace? Are you enamored with the person of Christ? What do you think about? Why do you spend time thinking about it? What do you ponder? Is it pure? Is it noble? Is it just? Is it true? When God rescues us, He doesn't make us passive, empty vacuums of people. We have solid work to do to fill our minds and our hearts and our hours of the day. Sometimes we take our foot off the gas and we don't work at all. I don't know if you remember your first car, or you might not have a car, I don't know, but my first car was a 1984 Datsun Sentra. It's a pretty old car. I'll call it vintage, meaning that everything in it was vintage. There was zero power in the car. Everything was manual. I rolled the window down, I rolled the window up. There was no cruise control in that car. I had a heavy textbook. Sometimes on long road trips, I'd put the textbook down on the gas pedal. Don't judge me. I know it was dumb. I'd freak out if my kids did it. There's just no power in the car. But I remember going from that car to my second car, which did have cruise control. And I'll tell you, the thing about cruise control is you take your foot off the gas, right? But it was also dangerous for me. I'd fall asleep late at night in cruise control. Cruise control almost killed me a few times. The gospel never intends for us to cruise. The gospel never intends for us to take our foot off of the gas. Being a Christian, that's a sweat-breaking endeavor. We break a sweat being a Christian. Handling all your mind and what it considers and ponders and meditates on, that takes exertion, friends. Consistency. It takes some commitment to be pure in an increasingly impure world. To honor truth where truth is disavowed or made personal or made situational. To be noble in a society where we are very happy to invent new ways of evil and then applaud people who have pulled it off. Thinking like Christ is against the grain. It takes work. It takes work. That's why we catch Paul in 2 Corinthians speaking to a different church saying this: we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God and take every thought captive to obey Christ. That sounds like work. That sounds like a lot of work, destroying, taking thoughts captive. It sounds like exertion is required. But the payoff is we feel the peace of God next to us. When he says the peace of God comes, or the God of peace comes, he's not saying that God comes because he wasn't already there. He's saying that we get to feel and experience this peace of God. Listen, if you're saved today, if you're a Christian, you love Jesus and he loves you, and you know this, there's some repenting to do on a passage like this, in a critical time like this. We should repent and turn from some of the things that we dwell on, some of the things that we think about, meditate upon, dream about. A lot of repentance to how we've allowed our pace of life to fragment us and distract us and discombobulate us to where we do not carry one thought from one moment to the next. We're so distracted. Repentance for treating today as if this is all we have. Our universe is so small. If you're practicing and pondering grotesque things, ignoble things, impure, unjust, you need to know, and this is the good part of the gospel, that God is not the one you run away from. If you're thinking on wrong things, savoring wrong things, God is the one you run to, right? You see, the gospel says you don't have to run away from God until you get clean again and fix your brain and your mind and your train, and then you can. The gospel says, no. You take all of the garbage up in your head and you run towards God and you throw yourself at his feet. You beg him for change. You thank him for how good he is. Those are beautiful moments. Beautiful moments. Thank him for his unfailing love. But just as some hard application before we end this, can you catalog and slow down and take captive some of the things that run through your brain unbridled? Can you do that? Can you think about it? What are you thinking about? Not only what are you thinking about, but why are you thinking about it? What is in you that wants to ponder and dwell on those things? Why? Here's another one. What distractions can you cut out in order to maybe get out of the shallow side of the pool when it comes to deep thinking? To put yourself in context with God's greater story of what He's doing for you, your family, your neighbors, this city, this world. What distractions do you need to cut out? There's a good book out there, if you're into books. Cal Newport wrote it. It's called Deep Work. And one of the things that he prescribes in there, and I did this during my sabbatical, is to cut out social media. Turn it off. You don't have to delete your accounts. That's weird. But you could get them all off your phone. Turn off all of the notifications. I mean, it's about as close to living off the grid as some of you would ever have been before. But to just go off the grid, take it all out. This is what you'll notice. Yes, you will miss the world turning. No, the world won't miss you at all. It'll just keep turning on and going on. And after a month or 6 months, you're free, you've detoxed to a certain degree, depending on how long you go. And then you can add back on apps that serve you, but not apps that you serve, if that makes sense. Same thing with notifications. Some of you, if you just turned your notifications off alone, if that's all you did, you would notice an increasing depth in the way that you can think and the things that you think about. But can you also build time in your rhythms to think deeply? And when I say build time, I mean time with a soft ending where you don't feel rushed. A moment where you can sit with a Bible and a journal and a pen and know you have as much time as you need to have. You can ponder without limits. You can meditate deeply. But there's not a whip cracking over your head. There's not a hard stop waiting for you. That you could use those moments to think and meditate on how beautiful the gospel is. What does it mean for you that the gospel is beautiful? How is the gospel true and just and noble and excellent and commendable and pure? How? Ask God to make your eyes big, enough to see and savor Christ in an increasing way. I mean, I went through seasons of asking God, begging God to be more enamored with Him, to be more fascinated with the gospel. And you know what the Holy Spirit does? He shows us Christ in increasing measure and opens up our eyes to see. And friends, listen, if you are listening and you're a skeptic, you're not a Christian, you feel like God does not love you and you don't love God, but maybe you're looking. Maybe you're not sure, right? You need to know that this passage is not an if-then clause, meaning if you do these things, then God comes, right? That's not what he's saying. God rescues the outlaw and the villain and the faker and the leper and the mocker, and he does so despite all of our exertion, despite everything that we do. So if this is you, you need to know that when you respond to God, it's not to get him to do something. You're responding to something that he has already done for you. But I submit that you give your life, all of it, your heart, soul, and hear me, your mind. Your mind. That you'd fix your mind on the glory that is Christ. And that you would find this peace of God waiting for you. And as you would unpack this peace of God over a fruitful lifetime. So friends, listen, this is all I have today. I love you a bunch. If you're a part of Legacy Church, we miss you. I'm watching the same news that you guys are. I know it's changing by the day. We knew that we would yo-yo back and forth a little bit with tests and masks and guidelines. And so we'll be really quick to communicate the future whenever we feel like our future is going to have to bob and weave to make room for COVID-19. But until then, man, I really miss you. I really pray for all of you individually. And if you need anything, let us know so that we can help and serve you well. So I love you. Have a great week. We'll see you next week. God bless you.